want to wait for Bobby to be back. Yeah, but you can do that at the table while people are out. Get us out of relaxation. All right, we're going to come out of executive session at 7:13 p.m. and we're going to move into item 6. Public hearing. Item A, the Vernia City Council will host a public hearing to discuss and consider action on ordinance number 021226-01, a rezone application for the property described as 13378 U.S. Highway 87 West, Vernia, Texas 78121, City of Vernia, Lot 274, Lot 1, Block 13, acres 1.07, requesting a change from the current zoning C1 Retail District to C2 General Commercial District. First item of business is we're going to open up the public hearing at 7:14 p.m. The first item there is the requester presentation.
That'd be me.
That'd be you.
Okay. Well, first of all, my name is Michael Garrett, and I'm an employee of On the Grind. Been with Mark for about 8 years, and I'll talk about that in a moment. I want to thank y'all for your service to your community and all these police officers and fire people and you citizens. You can tell that the Super Bowl was Sunday because if it was Thursday night, you'd probably be home instead of here. Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, thank you for participating in your community. It is important. I don't see this very often. I usually see a handful of people. But anyhow, as I said, Michael Garrett, with On the Grind. I handle acquisition of real estate, development, permitting, and the engineering team has been with me just 50 years. I've been doing this in oil and gas, and then for Mark the last 8. I also have with me tonight Tyler Niels with Niels Meyer, and he's a civil engineer, so he'll have some either questions to answer for y'all or presentations if you so desire, but we believe we can answer all the questions. Our purpose tonight obviously is to come in and seek the zoning to C2 on the property. On the Grind as a company, we're drive-through coffee only. We do not have outdoor seating. We do not have indoor seating. It's purely drive-through to go only. So the C2 zoning with the drive-through, and we've since done some additional research in the last couple of days, and then we found that like Whataburger was granted C2. There's another restaurant here that was granted C2. So we don't think that we're beyond asking for something that has already been done in the particular overlay district. We did a little more research. We were not as prepared, I admit, Tuesday, to have had those answers I wish it would have been. But that's my fault, I think, running for anything like that. But On the Grind, we have probably 300 plus employees. We have 17 stores. We're primarily in small town communities. We give Mark Parmley is the owner and founder. Mark is 34, graduate of the University of Oregon, and worked for Dutch Brothers and grew up in the Northwest when he was going to school. And his little quick story is, he threw a dart from where it landed. He said, I'm going to go start my own business when I graduate from college. And it landed in a different city. And his senior year, his roommate asked him said, I'm going on vacation. And go. He said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to this little town called New Braunfels. He said, sure. Came down, fell in love, like most do in this whole community of the Vernia, the Braunfels area. And he moved the dart and he started this business. June will be 11 years ago. So he's been very successful. And he does a lot in communities, giving back, participation in the festivals. I was sitting listening to tonight. Interesting, I wish we were going to be able to work for it because I could see us, if this is approved, of course, but I could see what knowing what we would do. So we don't just come into a community. We want to come in and be a part of the community. I want to make that clear first before the presentation. We're not here to do anything except make a fine city finer with additional sales tax and revenue and create jobs for the community. And competition's part of it. I'm sure someday you'll have a Dutch Brothers, you're going to have a Starbucks, you're going to have, as communities grow, it's inevitable. But we're here tonight with things, and I want to do a quick presentation. I brought this for the easel, And then I've got some handouts here I want to pass out to show you some examples of what should the zoning be approved, what we do, and then I'm going to explain to you how we do that and such. But our whole process on these are 3 stores. The first one you're going to look at, Staples, is a facility we built 2 with HEB on the project with Vernia in New Brunswick and Loop 337. So here, and then the second one is in San Marcos on Ocarina Springs. And then the third single picture is another brand new one on Highway 306, just off Common Street in New Brunswick. For those of you who are familiar with that area. For the last 3 years, very honestly speaking, I now have a grandson that will be 12 this year that's done a lot of Little League All-Star. So we've been here, and for the last 3 years, at various times, including at that time, I've actually been driving through your city, and Mark and I have been talking about hopefully having the opportunity to grow our business here in your fine city. So we're excited if we can work this out of what we believe we can do to help the city continue to grow in a prosperous way with the business we generate what we do. So our stores themselves, the zoning falls into it under C2 because of the drive-through, obviously. And I realize there's also a special use permit, which we have done that in Vernia. We did one inside of it. It was required that we were actually inside of the strip center on their parking lot. So that was the requirement of Vernia to do that. It wasn't on the property that we acquired. It was a ground lease and a strip center, and that was it. And we did it, and the city supported it, and we do very well up there in Vernia to make sure our store. But our whole concept of things and how we do it is and this was something that Mark's first store was in New Braunfels. And actually the city of New Braunfels, we believe, changed their stacking ordinance because he did sell it over the store. And so we now over-design our stores and things to make sure that we don't get traffic in the streets. We have dual lanes, and I'm sorry the audience can't see this. And I'm glad she put that up there as well, but I'll show you a little closer in this rendering. But our process is we have what we call runners, and they go out and they physically take the orders in the queuing. And I redesigned it at the time from what he was doing, and we have sidewalks, so they're protected safety-wise when they're taking the orders. And in the overflow, when it merges, if they're out here to keep traffic moving, is the purpose of this. Then they have this zone here where they're also isolated for safety. We're really cognizant of what we do and how we do it for our employees and for the customers. But it's, in this particular situation with this site plan, and Tyler can give you the exact numbers, but we have far exceeded any. We did have a pre-development meeting, let me back up here. We had I believe it was January 22nd, wonderful meeting, and answered all of our questions at that time. We talked at that time about special use permit. I then asked, which would have been fine, is fine. I then asked about the opportunity maybe to do C2. What is the difference? And I think we kind of I got the consensus, and we say that really fee-wise or it really wasn't a big difference in things in it. Now, I did not understand at that time about the overlay. I should have asked more questions. I didn't. My fault. But the overlay district of the C1 and purpose for it. So we've since learned that. However, again, being redundant, we've also learned now that maybe there's some variance in that already occurring and things from C1 to C2 that's precedent's been set. So if we can get to the point that this might be approved, we'd still have to consider that possibly if you would. But again, we'll be thankful for anything if we can move our project forward. That's the goal tonight, is in whatever way that we can become a good part of the community and do this, that y'all would agree is for whatever reason, we would appreciate it. But, and Tyler again can talk about, but we run all the drainage calculations. I'm trying to answer the questions that I think you're going to hopefully ask if things whenever it comes to the end of the presentation. So if I can answer them now, to save time and effort, that's what I'm trying to do. But drainage, we've run all those calculations and everything there is no issues with that as far as the existing culvert on the side street and the drainage. We're not changing anything or impacting any of that in any aspect. We've talked with the city on the site plan, and the driveways and things as rendered on there originally were fine. Everything in the pre-development meeting, to my recollection, was basically acceptable. Is that, of course, subject to final plan review, of course, we understand that. But we were very honest in it and how we laid it out and what we talked about. Questions we had, staff was fantastic in answering our questions. Really, really, very candidly. We walked out and stood out there and left. I said, this is the way, I grew up born and raised in Romulus. This is the way it used to be. People, you go in a meeting, people would answer questions, and you walk out of there rather confused, you walked out with. This is wonderful. So, I commend your staff and I commend the job. But, what am I missing here and things? I'm sure it's going to come up, but unless it's changed, Tuesday night I asked of the staff that night and things. I understand there was only one objection letter to our that went out, and there was no comments to it, but I think it was an individual. I don't believe there was any pushback as far as the people within the radius of the project and things, to my knowledge. I don't think that's changed. Is that still true? Just one. So normally those are the things that might be of issue to us that we try to address. So I'm trying to do that, but I didn't see anything in opinion with that one comment based on the other night where I was told. So I'm free to answer any questions. We have no problem if we can make this happen. We're not here in any ways to affect what others do or be a factor on what others do. We just want to become a part of your community and do what we do well and things on our own. That is our goal. And I believe that in a true, fair, capitalistic market and things, competition makes us all better. We build across the street from Starbucks and do really well. We're fixing to do another one across the street from Starbucks. They're going to go through, but on permit. It's we don't have we compete like everybody else. Any questions? I tried to give you the big picture. I'm sure to answer anything that might be on your mind about our business, about our development, or Tyler, and either way.
Anybody have any questions?
I just want to touch on the drainage. Can I hear from you about the drainage and what that would do to an already sensitive issue with drainage here in town?
So, we do know that there's floodplain on this site, and we're keeping the building clear of floodplain. When TxDOT built that culvert crossing, because TxDOT does the underside of the culvert, and so what it's actually doing is acting as a restriction back into the site. And so that's how we modeled it, is what is it doing now, and what will it do with the development? And we found it doesn't overtop the roadway. It's still restricting, but it's not raising so high that it's jumping the road. And so that was our preliminary analysis that we put together for report.
Is there a plan for a detention or retention pond?
There is not right now because the way that culvert backs.
And what it does, it's kind of, you got it built in.
Exactly. It's hard to build a pond within a pond.
Right. Any other questions?
So, let me just throw a couple more quick things out. When you look through these in particular, what I'd really like you to maybe take time to notice is that we've gone to this white rock on our building, but we also, in every city, our dumpster enclosure, our sign monuments, anything we do, we build very upscale aesthetically. I'm not gonna, this is what you would see. In other words, we don't, could we save money and go build just 4 posts and put a gate on it? Sure, but we don't do that. We want, and I realize that the location on this property is high exposure for City Hall here, for the community. We're gonna do what you see here, first class, very first class.
So are the low ground monument sign rather than the high sign?
Whatever
You're
the
committed
code
to this?
allows us, if it's a monument, we'll rock it with rock. If it's a pylon, until I get US Signs does all of our signage, so
Okay.
whatever the city says we can do, if we can do low profile, we prefer that. But if it's not allowed, just,
I would tell you, that, that is preferred.
Okay.
Signage.
We-
Trying to get away from the, hey, look at me signs that are up in the air.
we can certainly do that.
Okay.
Also, if you'll notice on that first set I gave you, the things you can look at the night view or the overview on the third page there, or even closer, but where we can, we've gone to synthetic turf, like on our, what we call our infield area in here, in here, we do that in synthetic. We're very cognizant of the water and what it means to all of us. I've got cows too, believe me, I know what water means too. And I live on a well, so I know what it means. But we try to go synthetic. We talked about that, and we'll use whatever we can. Now, we won't go synthetic on the whole track. I think Mr. Racker was doing, we'd be mowing out there, I think. So anyway, but we will maintain it, and we will do it, those areas and things very, very aesthetically upscale.
And you brought up lighting. What type of lighting do you use? Is it-
We use the lighting that does not expand into the roadways or onto adjoining properties purely for, and you can kind of see it in here and things, towards the infield of the property. We will run our lighting codes based on what the city code's calling for. It's whatever the city code is and things, we're gonna meet it and we're gonna do it. But we do not expand beyond our perimeter, if that's what your question is. Nobody allows it anymore. And we don't, our lighting doesn't intimidate or intrude in the night skies and things of that nature. And I get it, but I also get that when I'm designing C-stores, McDonald's and such, people want to feel safe at night. They do. So lighting is important, but we don't want it intrusive. We have employees that come in at 4:30 in the morning, primarily ladies, and so we want to stay for them, and when they leave at night, and throughout the whole process, when these customers are coming through.
Yeah, we just don't want to see the glow from Vernia 10 miles an
Yeah,
hour.
I mean, dark sky. Have y'all done any research on dark sky lighting?
We meet it where we have to and things, so, but there again, our lights are down and in, they're not up and out.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's the way, the lighting manufacturers have pretty well determined that's the only way they can build it. Because whether you have nothing, dark sky, night sky or dark sky, it doesn't do us any good to light the sky. It does us really good to keep our employees and customers safe. That's what it is.
So my question is, the discussion is centered pretty much around the coffee thing, but C2, there's still land left on that lot. So my worry, my big worry, is what else is going on that property for the center of the town?
That is a great question, and there is, the only honest answer at this time is nothing. Here's what I will share with you though, and it was never planned. About 60% of the property right now is in the floodplain, so you couldn't do anything unless that changes.
Yeah, but say that changes.
Okay, and I was gonna throw that in. So, obviously, anything that goes in there is gonna come through. Whatever, if it were zone C2, whatever is allowed on your C2 would be the only thing that could go there. And that would still be subject to review, to meet all code requirements and things of that nature. We have no plans now. What I learned after our pre-development meeting was that there is a possibility that that property might in 2 years come out of FEMA map revision. Possibility that it might, it might be 2 years, it could be 3, it might not happen, we don't know. So after that was learned, I did not know that there was a possibility. I then said, it was after pre-development and everything else, I said to Tyler, well, maybe we should think then about if there's an opportunity down the road to maybe do something with that, and meet all the codes and everything, go through the whole process. Just only right now because it would then affect having a driveway maybe off 87. But we candid with you, after all of that, and we talked about it, Tyler communicated with TxDOT. Their initial response is probably not, but we won't tell you no for sure. You know, they're gonna keep that up, you know. So, we ran some calculations, if something were able to go on there at some point in time, it would probably be 2,400 square feet roughly, and in order to meet adequate parking. And I use this as an example, like a Hallmark store or something like that. If we're selling it, we want somebody there like you do. We don't want a coffee shop, you know, we don't want a Burger King, but we want something that's conducive to the area, you know what I mean, on the same property. On the same property. So, I know what you're thinking, but on the same property is what I'm saying. So, you just, anyhow, so you, but y'all would have total control of what it was as long as it meets for C2.
Well, yeah, actually we wouldn't, because if it goes C2, we lose control of what to do.
No, your ordinance dictates that.
Well, no, our code does.
That's done. Then your ordinance say what C2
Yeah,
says.
yeah, permitted use chart
Right,
governs.
so that's what we were thinking was, it would have to be approved by y'all, no matter what. We would be okay with special use, it just, after Tuesday night, and Tyler did the research, and then we found that y'all were kind of, you know, at first we thought it was just because overlay, but we're seeing where there was already, it's already occurring, so then I thought, well, if we could stay C2, it would be a reason, to do that. It's just a thought. We will be happy in any capacity to be a part of your community. I'll be honest with you. But we're also thinking ahead for both our sakes, that a vacant piece of land doesn't generate sales taxes and revenue to grow that business and fire business and everything else that you need to fund a growing community. So, putting something of value that's attractive, if it could ever even happen, would be advantageous to the corporation. That's just a thought. If not, we can mow it forever.
Any other questions?
And I'm happy to answer that. I appreciate the questions. I do.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you all very much for your time and your service.
All right, now we're going to move on to staff presentation.
So staff and I, the future land use maps identifies the property as mixed use, which contemplates a flexible combination of commercial and compatible land uses. Requested C2 zoning remains within commercial framework, provides additional flexibility consistent with mixed use planning principles, and does not introduce incompatible residential to industrial transitions. Historically, the C2 district allowed for more intensive industrial uses. However, the district has been since updated and functions primarily as a broader commercial classification. The current C2 standards are tailored more towards commercial uses rather than heavy industrial uses. Given the limited size of the tract, approximately 1 acre, the site naturally limits development intensity. Large-scale commercial or industrial development is unlikely due to lot constraints. No significant adverse land use implications are anticipated. Additionally, approval of the land zoning does not authorize construction. Any future development must comply with all zoning regulations, obtain required building permits, meet parking, drainage, access, and infrastructure requirements, and comply with all applicable city ordinances and development standards. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend to deny this zoning change, and based on consistency with future land use maps, which is mixed use, connected commercial character of other zoning districts, limited tract size, and ongoing development oversight through the permitting process, staff recommends approval.
Okay. So, second question. How many letters went out?
So there was 15 that were in the 200 foot, but there was
You
a
say
few of
1-5?
them. Yes, but there was a few of them that had the same exact address and they only get one vote. So I sent out 12. I only got one back, and it was opposed, and there was nothing written in there.
Okay, so you sent out 15 letters, only one letter came back, and it was opposed with no commentary.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I understood that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So Javi, before you sit down, though, read what under C2 is allowed, it's not allowed in C1.
Yeah, what can happen in C2 that cannot happen in C1?
Yeah.
Hold
so-
on, how many feet did it?
200.
feet.
Yeah, the requirement is the sound notifications, 200-foot radius.
Okay, I'm gonna just read, it's gonna take me a minute, so give me a minute. So, cemeteries require a special use in C1, but in C2 they're permitted. Exhibition area and fairgrounds is required a special use in C1, but is permitted in C2. Kennel and animal boarding requires a special use permit in C1, but is permitted in C2. Laboratory, medical, dental, and scientific research requires a special use permit in C1 and is permitted in C2. School trade/commercial, it requires a special use permit in C1, but is permitted in C2. Stadium, playfield, public athletic fields requires a special use permit in C1, but is permitted in C2. Auto muffler shop is outright permitted in C2. Car wash requires a special use permit in C1 and in C2 is permitted. A filling station, fuel tanks must be underground, requires a special use permit in C1, but is outright permitted in C2. Parking garage requires a special use permit for C1 and is outright permitted in C2. Quick oil change facility requires a special use permit in C1 and C2. And then now office, retail, and commercial service types. Amusement commercial requires a special use permit in C1 and is outright permitted in C2. Amusement outdoor amphitheater requires a special use permit in C1 and C2 is permitted. A blacksmith or wagon shop is outright permitted in C2. Boat sales and storage is outright permitted in C2. Building materials requires a special use permit in C1, but in C2 it's permitted. Clinic emergency care requires a special use permit in C1, is permitted in C2. Convenience store and convenience store with gas sales require special use permits for C1, but is outright permitted in C2. Flea market requires a special use permit in C1 and is outright permitted in C2. A game room is outright permitted in C2. Garden center / plant nursery requires a special use permit in C1 but is outright permitted in C2. Limousine / taxi service requires a special use permit in C1 but is outright permitted in C2. Lumberyard / building materials requires a special use permit in C1, permitted in C2. Maintenance / janitorial services requires a special use permit in C1, but outright permitted in C2. Monument, gravestone, granite, or marble retail sales requires a special use permit in C1, but is outright permitted in C2. Motel requires a special use permit in C1, outright permitted in C2. A taxidermist is outright permitted in C2. Tool rental requires a special use permit in C1, and C2 is outright permitted. Veterinarian clinic, large animals with outside pens requires a special use permit in C1, but in C2 is permitted. Bakery commercial production is outright permitted in C2. Bookbinding facility is outright permitted in C2. Breweries, distilleries, and manufacture of alcohol and alcoholic beverages requires a special use permit in C1, but in C2 it's outright permitted. Carpentry in C2 is outright permitted. Cold storage plant is outright permitted in C2. Contractor's office / sales with outside storage, including vehicles, is outright permitted in C2. All these are outright permitted. I'm just going to read them off. Electronic assembly is outright permitted in C2. Freight terminal is outright permitted in C2. Frozen food storage is outright permitted in C2. Furniture manufacture is outright permitted in C2. Game processing is outright permitted in C2. And industrial laundry is outright permitted in C2. And then the last one right here. A machine shop is outright permitted in C2. Metal fabrication shop is outright permitted in C2. Mill, grain, flour, food products requires a special use permit in C1, is outright permitted in C2. Monument, gravestone, or marble works, the manufacture side of those, is outright permitted in C2. Moving or storage company is outright permitted in C2. Pipe sales and supplies outright permitted in C2. Plastic products, molding and reshaping outright permitted in C2. Self-storage, mini warehouse, no outside storage of boats, RVs, or trailers. Requires a special use permit in C1, but is outright permitted in C2. Self-storage, mini warehouse with outside boat, RV, and trailer is outright permitted in C2. A welding shop is outright permitted in C2, and wholesale office and sample rooms is outright permitted in C2.
All right. That was a lot. Okay. Anything else from staff?
I guess the only thing which you kind of discussed is that the setback distances stay the same, but there is a 30-foot height requirement maximum for C1 that is not required for C2.
Okay. So C2 could have a taller structure than
There is
C1.
no maximum height limit on C2.
Gotcha, okay, but the setbacks are the same
The
on
setbacks are the
C2 and
same.
C1. I guess looking at all this, you know, from an engineering standpoint, was there anything that stood out to you that brings you concern?
No, they have, I mean, like I said, they presented, they have pretty good traffic controls and everything put in place. So I think that would be well already equipped. Like I said, just due to the small size of the property, when we were looking at the permitted uses, we didn't see anything super concerning, just because once you build this, there really won't be much acreage left, and due to the ordinances requiring so many parking spots and everything else, like they said, I mean, they could get 2,000 square foot building maybe, and that would obviously increase impervious cover and change the drainage study that they are also doing. So I would likely say at that point there might be additional drainage concerns, but that would be if they put impervious cover on the entire tract, not with how they have it currently presented.
Does anybody else have any questions for staff? Okey dokey.
May I give you one more comment I did not give you? I'm so sorry. If it were a 2,000 and it wasn't a major business, but just an accessible, TxDOT did say that they would grant you on that tax street. Correct. So, for what it's worth.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I mean, any driveways coming off of 87, Chihuahua, 775, that's all governed, 1346, that's all governed by TxDOT, and they say what can and can't happen with driveways.
I've got a couple of questions I thought about.
Okay.
One, the entire track is gonna be sold.
Yes, sir.
to Olive Branch, right?
Yes, sir.
Have y'all given any thought to the monument sign that's there right now that is used by the high school too?
The billboard.
The billboard, I call it monument sign.
Here's what I'll tell you, I don't own on the grind, and Mr. Rackler recently clarified, because we weren't sure, but he does own it.
Yes.
And it does convey. And I love what has been being done with it. Could we use it for on the grind possibly? Yes. Could we use it for the high school? Yes. In fact, if this is approved, I was going to ask you, because I'm thinking, if we don't do anything with that additional land, if we can't do anything with it, if it's just too small, and it could be very nice in a small capacity, like I said, you know, roughly 2,400 max, and meet the engine and all of that. But would be, I noticed during the holidays there was a Christmas tree over here. Would it maybe work there in the future, possibly behind it? There's all kinds of options, but we don't plan to tear it down, to be honest with you. But we're here for the community. You ask Marcus, or somebody's got a thought. He does a lot of good things for a lot of people. It's amazing what he does, as far as giving back to communities.
All right, we're going to move on to A4 to receive public comments. After hearing everything, Nora Wilkinson.
So first, there's always something that you can do with 1 acre. You can move up, you can do a deck, you can have a garage on top. So don't let that fool you. You can do anything you need to in a little space. You can even go down. I know it's in a floodplain, but if it gets Sarah and it gets approved, then they can go down as well. So my name is Nora Wilkinson. and I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight regarding the rezoning request of this spot. I had the address. My background is I work for Georgetown Contractors. I've been there for 21 years. I'm strong in favor of the growth and construction. Obviously, that's what I do for a living. Development, when done thoughtfully, strengthens the community, but it must be impactful to the purpose and the community as a whole, not just permissible under the broader zoning category. Tonight, I respectfully ask you to consider the broader implications of moving the property from a C1 to a C2. So, there are certain potential pros to rezoning. Obviously, C2 designation allows for a broader range of commercial uses. It can attract new investment. It can increase the tax base. It may provide additional consumer options, which obviously we heard that there's going to be potentially more buildings or an additional building on this lot. Those are really great in consideration and they deserve acknowledgement. We all know that growth is great. However, the cons, particularly at this specific location, and it raises a lot of concerns. So the traffic. I turn right there every day to go home, and the traffic backs up on 87. I can't even turn to go on 775 so I can get home. So that's a huge concern. I know you're off of Nichols, which is a huge concern because people fly down that road, discard the stop signs. There's not even a center stripe on that road. I understand you're going to make it bigger. How does that affect Buffalo Joe's? I mean, they're not here, I don't see them, but how does that affect them? So, under the C1 zoning, the scale and intensity of development are more limited. But once we move to C2, we open the door to significantly higher intensity uses, larger square footage, particular projects exceeding I'm going to say 2,500 square feet, which obviously you can go up. The C2 mixed use and the general commercial developments typically require deeper traffic impact analysis. I know the civil engineers here. I'm sure y'all have done some traffic analysis on Nichols. I mean, that's the only way that you can get to it. I don't know how bad traffic's going to go on to Chihuahua Street, but I know it's going to be bad if it goes on 87. The corridors currently does not function that way and was not designed for the higher traffic volumes that a C2 designation could invite. Second, infrastructure and watershed. So higher intensity development brings increased impervious cover. More concrete, more roof area, more runoff, especially if you use turf, because that water just goes right through it. The effects, drainage patterns, and watershed management. Without significant infrastructure upgrades, we risk compounding flooding and runoff issues in the surrounding properties. Growth without adequate infrastructure planning creates long-term costs for the city and its residents. So there's a couple of businesses back there. You start opening that up, and as you know, TxDOT underdesigns everything, engineers everything, so that water will go right into there as soon as we put our concrete, asphalt, or whatever impervious cover. Third, the scale and character of development. Transitioning from a C1 to a C2 allows for larger structures, typically those that affect everybody, which often attracts regional, national chain entities. While chains are not inherently negative, we must ask ourselves, is this the vision in the gateway for Vernia? C1 zoning was designed to support retail that is more neighborhood-oriented in scale and impact. C2 expands that scope considerably, as he said. Once the door opens, it is very difficult to close. Rezoning is not just about one proposed business, it sets precedents for what could be built there in the future. Finally, we must consider the impact on our local business ecosystem. Vernia prides itself on supporting businesses that give back. I understand that the grind and Mark gives back, as you know, in Vernia, and my daughter has benefited from everybody in this room. Businesses that sponsor local teams, the sports, events, FFA, 4-H, and reinvest in our community. If a rezoning decision maternally affects existing local businesses that have consistently supported this town, we must weigh that carefully. Economic growth should strengthen our local base, not destabilize it. I respectfully ask the council to consider whether the current C1 designation already provides reasonable commercial opportunity without introducing the broader impacts of C2. If additional development is desired, it should be pursued with thorough traffic studies, infrastructure planning, and clear alignment with Vernia's long-term vision, or choose a different location. Thank you for your time, your service, and your thoughtfulness consideration in this matter.
Thank you. Danny Kent. Is that Kent?
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, everyone here. My name is Danny Kent. I am a resident here within the city limits of Vernia. And I am also president of the Kobe J. Kent Foundation. What we do as a foundation couldn't be possible without relying heavily, and I do mean heavily, on our local businesses, our supporters, our people here, support our mission, which is to further the education advancements of our students here at Vernia ISD. We support the 4-H, FFA communities, local youth group entities, people, families in distress, etc., through donations that we acquire from our one event that we host a year, which is a golf tournament. From that one day, the money profits that we make off that go directly back into this community only, goes nowhere else, supporting the students of Vernia ISD. Without our local entities, this wouldn't be possible. These people, some of you as well, have taken that gamble, have rolled the dice, have spent major money developing your ideas, your business, and praying that it would be a success. And we are grateful for that. Allowing new entities to come in takes away from those efforts. I feel like you're just spreading your money, not acquiring new business as far as supporting the community. I mean, if we had 12 convenience stores in this town, nobody's making money, if I'm not mistaken. But our supporters, our foundation, respectfully ask that you deny this zoning request for the support and in supporting our local entities and people here that have lived here for all their lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I happen to be a business owner, however, I'm on the opposite side of 87. I'm back towards the high school, junior high. And I know the traffic in that area, if it becomes the same on Nickel Street, it's a nightmare. As the storage company at Bluebonnet and San Antonio, I was under the impression that we were on the opposite side. However, if the traffic becomes anything like it is over there, it is an absolute nightmare because the kids, now, they won't be on Nickel Street over where y'all are proposing to change the zoning. But the traffic over there, the children getting out of school, the fight that I have with people that want to park on my property just to pick their kids up when they get out of that school district is constant battle year after year. However, that was what I was concerned about, is if this traffic was going to impact that side of the street, which it appears as though it won't. But I do know as a community, these streets, Nickel Street, San Antonio, are too narrow, too congested. They're just a nightmare, and I don't know how the city is going to be able to address that. I know the city owns property next to me, and when they have big equipment that turns, they take up a lot of space, and we figured that out, huh, Jennifer? And we no longer fight about that. However, traffic in those little bitty streets is a really big problem. And I don't know if adding another drive-through area, even on the street that is Nichols and Chihuahua, is a really good idea. I agree that the C1 does invite retail to come into there. I know that we want to grow. I agree that we need to grow, that we need more businesses adding to our tax base. I just don't like where they're at. I would welcome them anywhere else that could accommodate their traffic, and accommodate what they want to do, as we welcome more businesses that want to be community partners, but not at the expense of more congestion and more frustration and more. I personally live off of Highway 87, and turning off of 87 is a nightmare. 18-wheelers coming into it 70 miles an hour, you're at a dead stop. I've seen lots of accidents. I know TxDOT's addressing it. We know about a 5 to 8 year project. Who knows? But I'm concerned about the traffic. I'm concerned about the congestion. I'm concerned about what we're adding, and if we're really gonna get much benefit out of it. Is, you know, a yin and a yang. You gotta give something to get something. I don't know if we're getting as much as what we're giving up. Thank you for your time.
Hillary Moore?
I'm Hillary Moore. I am, thank you all for coming on this. I've been here for 50 years. This is my first city council. Kind of excited that I get to say something. I get to kind of share. I grew up in a very poor family, and our family just somehow, God has blessed us with, in the 50 years we've been here, we somehow have a gym. And it's really great, and we couldn't do it. We built it ourselves. We didn't hire contractors and all that. I literally took out a home equity loan against my 10 acres and home to build that. And we built it ourselves. We did not hire one single contractor except for the concrete finishers. We even got the plans from the fire department to make sure we built a good enough slab for the sucker. So it was a community effort. We do our best to help every kid that ever comes through our doors. And I can tell you that I literally, my husband and my children and our family, we bet the farm on our business. And if it doesn't make it, we lose everything. And I'm just gonna let you know that there's some people in this room that have done the same thing. And I feel like I love your story of the young man who started his business, because that was us. I had a little dream, and I'm gonna tell you that I grew up on, clothes from the church. My single mom couldn't afford anything. So I literally went hungry a lot of my childhood. So to have this happen to me, where God bless us, our community, with people who have the strength and the ability to go out there and start a business. I mean, I literally I would go nuts if, I freaking love raisins. And I love Wibs. And I patronize both. If Bill Millers tries to come in here, it's gonna be So my personal issue is the other thing. I was pulling out of the shed, which is my daily run, which a lot of people in this town enjoy, and there's 2 other coffee shops. The reason I appreciate On the Grind is because they're a little bit different. They're another coffee shop, a little bit different than these other guys. But as I'm coming out of there, I usually turn left and go by the tennis courts, kind of head back by the stores and get home. Because you can't get across the highway. As it is. I mean, if you're pulling out of the salon there that has the spa and everything, the LB nails, it's already a nightmare because 87's like this and the side street is like this. Number one, 87 won't hold up with Nicholson right there. That street's not wide enough. Y'all just fix the pothole there. I mean, it's barely wide enough for 2 cars as it is. And so I'm really not sure how that's actually gonna work and who's gonna pay for it. But I'd rather not, because my taxes have more than tripled on our property. To give you an idea, to stay alive, our payment was $2,600 a month, and now it's $45 in property taxes. Any business owner will tell you, you have to be strong. You have to pray a lot that people walk through your door. I'm just not interested in, I looked up the numbers. San Marcos supports 75,000 patrons in their community. New Braunfels has 120,000. And then we have Vernia at 23,000, but Bernie's just, they grow money out of the ditch. And then Vernia has 15 in our area. 15,000 people is going to support. So I'm like, I love the concept, bring in a business, but dude, do not put it across the street from our dearly loved people who have gone out and put their livelihood on the line. And one of our board members is one of them. And I think that our council members, excuse me, I need to just speak very frankly here. In 50 years, I love that HEB came in only because they hired everyone of balance. That's one thing. We needed a new grocery store that was bigger, that could support our community. This is completely different, and I might be interested in another coffee shop coming in if maybe they had a different niche. Maybe if they were at the other end of town. But we're gonna have a lot of deadly, and we're gonna have fatal accidents there. I see them happen almost accidents all the time. And I'm really not interested in, I'm praying our city council, knowing who you all are for a very, very long time, and I'm sorry if I've spoken too long, it's nothing. You know what it took. And I came from nothing. And I sacrificed everything. And I don't know what else our community needs to do to express to you that we need to take care of our current businesses. We need to take care of our current roads. And if we wanted to bring in more business, we need to build better roads that are bigger and fix our drainage issues, and then talk just another one coming in. But a fourth coffee shop, yeah, we have 1 million Mexican food places and they're all full every Saturday morning. It is supported. But putting a coffee shop across the street from somebody who has really changed the landscape of the city, I'm not for that. And I would be very, very concerned with the future of our city if our city allowed that. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Chase Vincent. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Chase Vincent. My wife, Katie, and I are the proud owners of The Shed Coffee Shop here in Vernia. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight. We are not a corporation. We are not backed by investors or shareholders. We are a mom and pop business that was built from the ground up with faith, hard work, and a deep love for this community 7 years ago. When we opened The Shed, we didn't just open a business. We planted roots here. We chose Vernia because this is where we were raising our family. This is where our children go to school. Katie and I actually have one child at every single campus. This is where our customers know us by name and we know theirs. This is where we sponsor school programs, support fundraisers, donate to teachers, cheer on our students, and show up when our community needs us the most. Over the past 7 years, the coffee shop has proudly contributed back to the city through charitable donations, school support, sponsorships, and community events. Every dollar we earn stays here in this community. It goes back into our schools, into our local events, into our families, and into this town. We are proud of that, but today we are here because that future is at risk. The proposal to allow a coffee chain to build directly across from our small business is not just a development project to us. It's a direct threat to our livelihood. Chain stores operate on a scale that small businesses simply cannot compete with. They have massive advertising budgets, corporate pricing power, and brand recognition. They can afford to lose money in one location to gain market control, and we simply cannot. For us, one slow month can mean not paying ourselves. One bad year can mean closing our doors. This is not about competition. We welcome healthy competition, but this isn't competition on equal footing. It's survival for small, local family businesses. If this business is approved right across the street from us, it will dramatically impact our sales, charitable contributions, and our ability to keep our doors open. Approving this directly across from an existing small business that sets precedent for how we protect or fail to protect the entrepreneurs who invest here first. Growth is important. Development is very important. but protecting the businesses that help build this town should matter too. We are not asking for special treatment. We are asking for consideration. We are asking you to recognize the value of protecting the small businesses that already call the Vernia home. When locally owned businesses thrive, more money circulates in this community. Studies consistently show that local businesses reinvest significantly more back into their own towns than chains do. Because when small businesses close, something irreplaceable is lost. You don't just lose a coffee shop. You lose a sponsor for school events. You lose a supporter of student programs. You lose a local employer who knows their staff personally. You lose a family that is invested in this town for the long haul. A corporate chain will never know our kids' names. They will never donate quietly behind the scenes. They will never sit in these bleachers cheering on our students, and we do. We have poured our hearts into the shed. We have built relationships, not just revenue. We are asking you tonight to please consider what kind of town we want Vernia to be. One where local families can still dream, build, and succeed. One where small businesses are locally pushed out by chains with deeper pockets.